to myself again. But it's the only...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Tuesday night, which means it's myself and Liam Kennedy talking Newcastle United, looking back on the last 7 days. Good evening, Liam.
You're all right. It's not often a Tuesday we get together these days, is it?
Well, I know, but I mean, after a bit of a discussion between you and I thought, well, yeah, I'm happy to do it tonight, even though it means it's a long shift for me. I've got the match, I've got 45 minutes break and then back on for Match Day Live tonight with the Crystal Palace game. It's not very often we do a match day together, so yeah. I suppose, I think my feeling on this was as well, after the result at the weekend, I wanted to be able to talk to you about something positive because we've had so much negative in the last month or so with results on the pitch that there was that chance that if we did it tomorrow night and Newcastle get beat tonight, we would have been back to normal talking doom and gloom. So it means it gives you the opportunity to accentuate the positives about the performance of the weekend. And then obviously we can look ahead to tonight's game as well and wonder whether Steve Bruce will be doing a bit of this with Graeme Jones, because there was that Graeme Jones effect I felt at the weekend. It seems to have split fans' opinions, seems to have wound Steve Bruce up a little bit. Obviously the picture I took at the weekend during Match Day Live would suggest that Steve Bruce wasn't too happy with Graeme Jones' involvement, certainly hasn't given him any praise. But let's talk about the football before we look at that. What a result. I personally felt, Liam, that was the best performance of the season so far.
Easily, yeah. I think it was the most complete performance. It was the first time in a long while that Newcastle United have looked like a proper football team. I wasn't sure they had a performance like that in them, and I think a lot of people out there will probably feel that and agree with that sentiment. Look, I think it's no, without being too critical of Steve Bruce, it is quite obvious that Graeme Jones has had a big impact. It was like the Belgian blueprint. It was like Callum Wilson became Romelu Lukaku. It was like Eden Hazard, Almiron played that position. It was very Belgium-like in the way that he set up. We all know that Graeme Jones had a decent influence on that Belgium side that got in the semi-finals of the World Cup recently with Roberto Martinez and Thierry Henry as the coaching team. So yeah, I think they did. He was only in a few days, but you could see that there was a collective press. I think that's one thing that has been lacking when Newcastle United. I can think back to one example this season when Newcastle United tried the high press and it was Southampton away, and it could have worked, but they just kept gifting the ball away constantly, and they only pressed in ones and twos. If you do that and you don't do it collectively, then it's never going to work. But Newcastle United really pressed in packs, as a unit, and it's amazing what you can do when you win the ball sort of 30 or 40 yards further up the pitch. What you can actually do with it with 4 or 5 men around the ball, and Newcastle United really did that. They looked like scoring goals. Callum Wilson had more chances in 90 minutes than he probably had in the previous 10 games. He had 5 chances, missed a sitter, hit the post, hit the bar, scored twice, and of course he was complaining he could have a hat-trick, but I think he'd be absolutely delighted that those chances are falling his way now, because it's been a real barren spell in terms of chances created for the striker. Miguel Almiron's got that smile back on his face. That's not a coincidence.
Look at his heat map. I mean, we got that from obviously the official club Twitter. That was his heat map from the weekend's game. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? It's like I said to Ian Mearns on Sunday. That's like that cereal you used to have when you were a kid, Ready Break, and you used to do the advert where you used to go all the way down and fill your body. I mean, that's exactly what it looks like. But what a performance.
Yeah, it was, and he wasn't the only one. He seemed to cover every blade of grass, which that heat map sort of proves as well. But he was more central, and he wasn't a number 10. He wasn't played out wide, which he has been largely this season. He was in a position that really, really suited him. He was central, almost the central of the attackers of the three. At times, he was the furthest forward. With Callum Wilson dropping out at the right, and it really, really worked. It complemented everybody in that team really well. We've seen performances from the likes of Jeff Hendrick, which we've never seen this season. He was covering, again, like Almiron, he was probably one of the top runners on the pitch. Javier Manquillo was absolutely outstanding at right back. Jamal Lewis looked like a player transformed. Isaac Hayden stood out for me as a real transformation, because I know he's been one player that's been quite critical of the tactics, been quite vocal on the pitch towards the manager. I know there's been some friction between the two of them at times. And I think it was really refreshing to see Isaac Hayden play in a position that really suits him, and he really warmed to it as well. So there was good performances all over the park. Fabian Shaw was good. Yeah, I think there's very few players you could really fault. Look, John Joe Shelby. Anybody who watches this will always know that I'm not his biggest fan. I think he could do more off the ball, and I think he got found wanting at times. But again, on the ball, he was really progressive. Pushed forward, made some good passes, kept the ball moving. So, yeah, like I say, you can go through the whole team and probably pick out positives for all of them.
Yeah.
And looking ahead tonight, it's a really winnable game, and I do fancy them tonight. You look at Saturday and Southampton, despite being a very good side and having a very good season to a point, aren't really scoring many goals recently. They're not a team in much form. So you'd look at these next two and say, if Newcastle can somehow get 4 points out of these two games in the next week, then you're flying, really. Look, flying within reason. Look, there's obviously context to it, but in terms of the way Newcastle have been this season, if they could get another 4 points on the board, take themselves up to 26 points, I genuinely think this season you're probably looking at 34 would probably keep you up as fourth bottom. So then Newcastle United are pretty much there. It may even be less, because then you're relying on if it's 34, you're relying on the likes of Fulham more than doubling half their season total, and there's less than half the games left. So they'd have to go on a really good run to get above 34 points. But I think that's a base mark that Newcastle United have got to reach in this season. This really important season where there's a lot of things at play. Newcastle just need to get themselves over that line this season. And I think for all the doubts that we had in the run up to Everton, there was really a lot of positives to take, because it was just really heartwarming to know that there is that performance in there. And I think that's where a lot of the positivity from everybody particularly on social media over the weekend, came from. It was a real positive place to be this weekend, because it felt so good. It actually felt good. Newcastle United winning a football match on a weekend, on an early Saturday. I walked around the rest of the day with the biggest smile on my face ever. Nowhere to go, of course, nothing to do, but I was just so happy, and I imagine that'll probably be reflected everywhere else, and lots of people watching this would have felt the same.
Yeah, I would agree. Jamal Lewis deserves a little bit of praise as well. Mark, I'll come back to your question because I think it's a good one. But Jamal Lewis, again, the heat map, courtesy of Newcastle United's Twitter. He probably had his best game in a black and white shirt. I mean, there was a few outstanding performances, but everyone had a good game. But in particular, Lewis, with his ball in for Wilson for the goal as well. We finally saw him off the leash and doing what we were hoping he was going to do when he signed in the pre-season.
He's a footballer who's got a lot of ability. He's an attacking fullback. He's not a great defender, but look, he can be coached and improved. Jurgen Klopp really saw something in the footballer, and this summer I thought he could really grow him as a player. So I think he is a good player. There is a good player in there. Look, he's had a really tough season, but he's a young lad. It's only his second season in the Premier League. He's made a big move up here, a bit of pressure with the kind of fee that was involved, and I think he struggled with that in a poor team. They've got to remember that there's been a lot of criticism of certain players' performance this season, but the team as a whole have been dreadful for most of that. So you haven't really had many players standing out in those kind of in this team and those kind of performances. So I think there's a positive to take from that, Jamal Lewis. I think if he can be allowed to roam a little bit further forward, if he can have a big impact in an attacking sense, then I think I think we've got a good player on our hands. He's the best left back at the club by far. And I think he's got a lot of promise, especially like I said, in an attacking sense. He's probably a better wing back than a full back, but like I say, with a bit of quality coaching, he can be probably turned into a very, very good footballer.
Yeah, I would agree. Mad Mark, good evening, mate. He says, with Yedlin's departure and new arrival Willock being a homegrown under-21 player, which member of the outcasted Newcastle squad would likely get reintroduced back into the 25-man squad? Atsu, Save, or Lazar? Good question, Mark.
It is a good question. There's actually a couple of others that you could add to that list that people may not know about. There's the lad who's basically Alan St. Maximin's best mate, that Florent Indelesio. he is also an overage player. And there is also a centre midfielder who used to be at Chelsea called Kyle Scott, who is quite a cultured centre midfielder, has had a lot of injury problems. So I think there are actually 5 players who could easily be added to that list. Look, I think the realistic one is Christian Atsu. Will probably come into that. He has largely been training on his own. Henri Saivet has been training with the group, which might be a hint, but I would expect it would be Christian Atsu. I think he's the one who easily brings the most to the table in terms of ability. It's a little bit of an embarrassing move. I'm not going to be too critical of the club over the transfer window in having to bring one of those players in, simply because this, to me, was the transfer window that promised nothing and didn't really deliver anything either. I wasn't expecting Newcastle United to really go out and improve that lot in terms of personnel. There isn't a lot of money kicking around. It was always going to be loan deals, and they had a little go. They did have a little go. Look, I said on Twitter, Newcastle United were they thought they had the Turkish centre half who went to Liverpool. They thought they had him. Everything was agreed. Hamza Chowdhury was, I'm told, virtually a done deal. It was sorted. Player was happy to come. Everything had been agreed. It was just relying on other players signing for Leicester. One coming from Watford to Leicester, and it just never happened, and there's nothing you can really do about that. But I think ideally Newcastle would have wanted 3 in, but I don't feel like I don't feel disappointed. I think there's been windows of years gone by where I've been at this stage really disappointed with the type of business Newcastle United have done. But because I was expecting so little from the window, I think it's hard to be disappointed. Look, people out there might feel totally differently. They might be totally incensed by the idea that all we've done is sign an Arsenal young kid to sort of warm him up to go back to Arsenal as a better player. But look, at the end of the day, I think if he adds a bit of legs to Newcastle United's midfield, which is what he's been brought in to do, then and with the wider context that we just need to make sure that we stay in this division this season, if he can bring a little bit to that side, then I'm not one to complain.
Yeah, I mean, look, Willock, he came out, he gave a social media message last night to Newcastle's fans. He's looking forward to, to pulling on the black and white shirt and playing for Newcastle. We didn't expect a great deal of action in this transfer window anyway, did we? Because not just at Newcastle, but across the board. I mean, A, there's a pandemic. B, we have Brexit in this country, which will certainly affect people's thoughts. We just didn't expect a great deal, and that's what we got. I think the big shock to many Newcastle fans after it had been reported early in the window was that Matt Ritchie didn't leave, but clearly either Newcastle wanted too much money or Bournemouth weren't prepared to offer him what he wanted. So, that's why that's collapsed. But for me, I don't know about you, I'm delighted that Matt Ritchie stayed, because I think, having him in that dressing room, if he's not on the pitch, is still a massive positive, and he'll do his bit from the sidelines, certainly coming on as well, and it gives us that cover as well. He's an adaptable player. He can play in midfield. He can play. He's proved he can play at fullback. He can play in the wing if need be, but he's in centre midfield if need be. But he's a versatile player, and I think losing him would have been a big blow. So I'm pleased he stayed.
Maybe I'm not disappointed he stayed, being brutally honest. I do think Matt Ritchie's seen better days. And I think if you want to improve your squad, I think you do need to improve on players like that. I think he was a fantastic signing when he was brought in. Did a fantastic job as a left wing back in the Premier League as well, under a really strict, disciplined Rafa Benitez side. But I don't know. I think in this, I don't think he fits in a 4. As a back 4, as a left back, I don't think he's a good enough defender. And I think he was never a quick player, but he's just lost that little yard of sharpness. It happens to everybody. And I think further forward, he's less effective. But like I say, he's a really solid professional. You can never fault Matt Ritchie for effort or anything like that. And I think to have those kind of players in and around the squad is no bad thing.
Yeah, no, I would agree. He's just experienced and it's good. Yeah, a lot of people paying their respects, of course, to Captain Tom. And obviously, that guy got all the plaudits that he deserved. And, terrible news, to hear of the passing of Captain Tom. And if there's anybody who deserves a statue built, it's that guy, because he stood up when when the chips were down for our country last year and raised almost £40 million for the NHS. Shouldn't have had to do it, but he did. And our thoughts are with his family, and let's hope that he gets some kind of send off and some kind of remembrance that he quite clearly deserves. But rest in peace, Captain Tom. And lots of bits and bobs on about the takeover. Me and Liam made a promise to each other this afternoon that we weren't going to talk about the takeover because, to be honest, Liam, there's nothing to say. And I think we can at least say that. And it's pointless talking about the takeover if there's nothing to say.
That's the thing. It's not really. It hasn't moved on a lot since we were last talking, and I don't really see the point in massively going over old ground. It hasn't not moved because that's a negative thing. This isn't coming from a negative standpoint. It's just one of those things. It's part of the process, and I think we'll be the first to come on here and chat about things with regards to Newcastle United takeover when there's something to talk about. But until that point, I think everyone. Something we've always preached on here is just, remain patient. I think everyone just needs to remain patient with it. The process will play out. It'll probably stall at times. It'll probably frustrate, but that's shared by the people involved at the very top of this deal as well. So you're not alone out there and being frustrated and wanting progress. So yeah, I think the best case scenario at the moment is just everyone just concentrate on the football. We've got a match tonight. Got a match on Sunday again. Got a lot of things happening with the football club. We've just had a transfer window. Look, I would just be patient. That's all I can say to people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not takeover related with regards to Newcastle, but what on earth did you make of that Burnley takeover now that the news is coming out of exactly what has gone on there? And like Paul Williams says, I'd like to hear our views on the owners and directors test for the Burnley takeover, because it appears if you're not viewed as a threat by the top six, any old Tom, Dick or Harry can get the green light. I think Paul's really put it across really well there, but I mean, how bizarre is that?
Really bizarre. It's embarrassing, really. I mean, this is the Premier League who really care about their clubs. They've got to make sure that the right owners come in and really care about the rights of their sponsors and things like that, and really look after them. And it's just ridiculous. Speak to Steve Hasty. Obviously, have the Three Amigos regularly, and he's been preaching this for quite some time about the Burnley. So watch out for Burnley. Watch out for all the backroom dealings and the loans from the USA and all this kind of thing. So yeah, he's been all over this one for the last few weeks, and it's now hitting the mainstream media. It's a really concerning thing for a club like Burnley, who've effectively had a transformation or felt like one in the ownership, but it's not. It's actually put the club worse off than they were before. It's just a really sad thing. There's a lot of clubs like that, and I think there'll be more go this way. But it's a really brass neck situation, isn't it, with the Premier League, that they claim they were trying to look after their football clubs and rejected Newcastle United. Didn't make a decision. Let's be honest about it. Didn't make a decision on Newcastle United, but could quite easily just sweep this one through, where it's basically as the viewer put there, any Tom, Dick or Harry lending money off anybody just to make sure they pay the bills and numbering the club with debt, leverage with debt. It's a really, there'll be a lot of Burnley fans out there really concerned, and I think football fans in general should be concerned if that the governing body are allowing football clubs to be taken over by people effectively buying football clubs on tick.
Yeah, last couple of days for the Old Coach House Distillery. Thank you to them for their main sponsorship through January. I think their 10% discount may well be finished now because we are well into February. But a big thanks to them. They've got a couple of days left, and I know that they've been very pleased with their publicity that they've received. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, and the makers of some rather interesting video gifts which are going around around now. One in particular, or two in particular, which have me and Liam dancing. And I know someone's just asked the question, will we be dancing? I'll ask Liam in a second. But also, Q-Tech do make our t-shirts, and you can buy them at newcastlelegends.com. Also, a big shout out to John from Jab Signature, who make our flyers and design all our artwork. Big thank you to you, John. So, Liam, will you be doing any of this dancing that Q-Tech's got we're doing on the gifts at some point?
I'm not that good a dancer, nor have I ever been that thin, but it was quite entertaining, to be honest. It made us laugh. Certainly made a lot of people out there laugh as well.
What's the take on this one then? Simon asks us, with the current defensive issues in Yedlin sold, should we not have recalled Lejeune with Lascelles out for a while?
I don't actually know if there is a recall option in that Lejeune deal. He's over in Spain at the moment. He's been performing reasonably well. But what I would say is my feeling on this is that Steve Bruce and his coaches don't particularly rate Lejeune. That was the sense that I got in the summer when doing a little bit of digging and a little bit of talking around, was that he wasn't. I think a lot more was expected of Florian Lejeune. He had a lot of injuries when Steve Bruce first came to the club, and I think he'd been talked up a lot by the press, by people in around the club, that he was the best centre half. Just wait till he comes back. And I think Steve Bruce, being a centre half himself, was quite underwhelmed by Lejeune. That's not my view on Florian Lejeune. I really do rate Florian Lejeune when he's fit, but it's important getting him fit. And I don't think he was quite managed in the right way when he came back from injury, because he's one of them footballers. He's not somebody who just comes straight in and can perform. I think we've seen it before when he'd had previous injuries. He takes a good, probably about a month to warm into the flow of Premier League football again. But once he's flying, he's like a Rolls Royce footballer. I really think he's a really good centre half. But at the moment, I don't know if there is a recall option on that. Even if there is, I'm of a mind to think Steve Bruce, thinking back to the summer, I don't think Steve Bruce would be of a mind to call him back.
No. Mo Chugs, good evening. He says, what do you think of the progression of the Longstaff brothers since we've signed Joe Willock? Do you think it'll stagnate further, or will they get better? Yeah, it's not been a great season for the Longstaff so far.
No, the Longstaffs is a really, really interesting situation at Newcastle United at the moment. There's obviously things going on away from the pitch. When Sean's particularly played on the pitch, he hasn't really performed. There's issues. There's two sides to every story, but it's not a great story to tell of the Longstaff brothers, and I find it quite sad, because I do think there is a genuinely really two fantastic footballers in there. I think Matty showed when he came in the side that he was Newcastle United's best, and I do think there could be a place for him in this team still. I just want to see them both get their heads down, and because there's been issues, I just want to see them really get knuckled down and prove to the manager why you should be in that football team. That's the only way a footballer who's out of favour or has got issues away from the football pitch can really prove to the manager that he's worth a place in the side. And look, between now and the end of the season, there'll be injuries, there will be problems. And I think one of those two guys in particular could definitely get in and make a big impact. But it is really concerning. I think it's really concerning that two young lads have stagnated for the best part of 18 months now. They haven't progressed beyond the players that they were probably. Yeah, Sean Longstaff for 2 years, the best part, stagnated. He's never been the same player, and I think he is a good player. I do think there's a good player in there. Matty Longstaff hasn't really come on in the last year, I would say. He's still probably where he was when he broke into the team, scored that goal against Manchester United and others. But I don't think that's the end of the story for them. I think this can be turned around, and I think the manager needs to give them another chance. And I think there needs to be a little bit more. I don't know. I don't want to say too much. I think there needs to be. I think they need to get their heads down, and really graft and prove that they're worth a place in this side, because it's now, like you said, with Willock coming in, it's a really competitive position. I would anticipate Joe Willock will come in and probably fit in where Jeff Hendrick will play tonight. Give it a little bit more legs than Hendrick, even though he was decent at the weekend. for me, I'd probably bring him in for John Joe Shelby, but that's just me. I think Matty Longstaff can really get back into that position. I think he's got a really good opportunity to do that, but he needs to get his head down, as does his brother.
Darren says Daniel Sturridge is still without a club. Would you take him till the end of the season?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Just a question from me. In that transfer window, I mean, obviously we saw, there was potential. Jesse Lingard was mentioned as a potential, etc. I mean, was there any ins or outs that nearly went through that should have gone? I mean, Chowdhury was another one which we all expected potentially to pull on a shirt. I guess with Richie staying, Chowdhury coming in wouldn't have gone down too well. They had a little bit of business between them in recent seasons. But yeah, I mean, was there any that just fell by the wayside? I mean, Bruce, of course, alluded to the fact that his main transfer didn't come off.
So the three that I think they thought they could get was Jesse Lingard. They really pushed hard to get Jesse Lingard, but there was people within the Manchester United coaching team, Michael Carrick and others, who were really championing the idea of Jesse Lingard being sent to Newcastle United, but that move was vetoed. And he was pushed down to West Ham, and he went down there. Can't explain to us why that might be, but I suppose people might be able to work out. Then there's Ozan Kabak. I think they thought they had him. I think they're pretty sure they had him, but obviously Liverpool's situation, Liverpool really pushed on the final day to get the centre halves in. And by all accounts, he's a pretty talented defender that would have had a very small fee and could have been brought in for around I think it may have been around £15 million in the summer if he'd done reasonably well. So that was one they thought they had. They thought they had him up until deadline day morning. I believe everything was virtually agreed on that deal. Hamza Chowdhury is the one that got closest. I know it's going over old ground. It was talked about for quite some time. He was on the radar for the full month. But it was just a case of the lad from Watford not moving to Leicester. If that had happened, then Hamza Chowdhury would have ended up at Newcastle United, and he would have slotted in probably where Isaac Hayden is. Look, I think he's a character who would have polarised opinion in Newcastle among Newcastle United fans, but I do think he was a reasonable player, and I think he would have added strength to the squad. So those were the three. Lingard, they really pushed hard for, got knocked back. They also thought they had the centre half from Schalke, and they thought they had Hamza Chowdhury. Chowdhury was more than happy to come and agreed everything, but it just didn't happen. And that's what can happen on final days. And I'll hear people out there complaining, well, why do they leave it at the final day? Everybody does. Liverpool came in at the last minute. Well, if you complain about losing the centre half, well, why did Liverpool leave it at the last minute? They've needed a centre half since September. You know what I mean? It's just the way it happens in January. So again, I find it difficult to be critical of the hierarchy for leaving it late, because you don't know who's going to become available, and you can have your lists, and you don't know who will be allowed to go. Like I say, the 24 hours before the deadline shut, Hamza Chowdhury was being allowed to leave Leicester. But then when it came towards tea time on deadline day, he was not being allowed to leave Leicester. That's how things can change. They can change very quickly. But yeah, I think Willock's a player who's struggled to get in at Arsenal, because they've signed a lad from Norway, from Real Madrid, and he'll probably play in that same sort of position. They've also got Smith Rowe, who scored against Newcastle. He was a really talented young footballer as well, and I think Willock's just found it really difficult to get in there. So this is his time to prove it. And I think if he sounds as good as what's been told to me, then I think he'll be all right, and I think he'll add a bit of legs in there, and that's something that Newcastle don't really have in their midfield. They don't have that pace. He's got an eye for goal, so yeah, I'm interested to see how he performs. And look, let's be brutally honest about this as well. He's 21. He's struggled to get in at Arsenal. I would be very surprised if he's got a long-term future at Arsenal. He's going to have to really, really improve and pull up trees at Newcastle and then go back there and really perform to get in there, because Arsenal's the type of club who will just sign players in those type of positions. So yeah, if he does well at Newcastle United, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up staying here a little bit longer.
Don't forget, we are back tonight at 7:45, match day live, Newcastle United versus Crystal Palace in the Premier League. It's a 8:15 kick-off on BT Sports. I'll be joined by the match day panel, NUFC Matters panel. Loads of opinions. Probably one of our more popular shows other than Liam's, to be fair. We're pulling in on average 7,000 viewers for this each match day, with the crack and the banter from the lads talking you through it, and the odd appearance of my rattle when Callum Wilson does put the ball in the back of the net. So looking forward to it. Hopefully Newcastle can get 2 wins out of 2. And if you're a first time visitor to the channel, then please click on that little button that you can see on the screen. It's a little badge with NUFC Matters on, and all we need you to do is click on that and subscribe to the channel. If you also click the little thumb at the bottom there, you can like the video and click share and share it onto your other social media platforms. It does help us. It's all free, and it is a big help to help us grow our community and make the channel bigger and better. Colour Coats has said that there's a video, I've just watched it there as Liam was talking, of the Qatar embassy in Riyadh raising the flag on the Saudi embassy. So that's the Qatar embassy, raising the flag. So yeah, very interesting. That could be joining the dots, who knows. Pete L says, Liam, do you think Jones' appointment is designed to force Bruce out, and do you think it's inevitably walks? I mean, I know I had a little bit of this discussion last week, but it's another pair of eyes, is the way Steve Bruce described it. It's another coach, isn't it, at the end of the day? I think really it's just Mike Ashley's way of dealing with the current situation, isn't it? Or Lee Charnley's way of dealing with it. You know, they clearly don't want to sack Steve Bruce for whatever reason, whether that's financial or whether it's because they feel a takeover is imminent and they want to leave that decision to the potentially new owners. But ultimately, they're dealing with it the way they want to deal with it, and they feel that bringing Graeme Jones in will help the current managerial team.
Steve, I think you've summed it up quite perfectly there, to be honest. I don't believe it is a move to force him out. Do I believe he 100% endorsed it? No, I don't. I think his reactions have proven that. But no, I think there was a lot of due diligence done by the people at the top of the football club with regards to the move. They spoke to a lot of people and brought somebody in they think would bring value. And they think will be able to help Steve Bruce along, because they weren't seeing any signs of improvement. I think the takeover always looms large over any decision taken at this football club now. It isn't imminent, but that can change very quickly. Things can move very, very fast. They haven't moved very fast for quite a while, but things can. And I don't think Mike Ashley, Justin Barnes and Lee Charney are in any particular mood to make huge groundbreaking decisions at Newcastle United while that still rumbles on in the background. I think that could be a problem in the summer too. I think there's been big losses at the football club. I don't think they will go out and spend big money if they're still in charge and if this is still rumbling on. But I'd go back to Jones. I think it's been a really positive early signs, positive appointment, and just that fresh approach on the training pitch, fresh ideas is just giving the players that little kick up the backside that maybe needed. They was maybe sick of the arm around the shoulder approach, which had sort of disappeared and gone to sort of almost public criticism and public shaming of certain players, certain performances. And I think they maybe just needed to feel loved a little bit again and coached a bit. And Graeme Jones has come in and done that, worked on a number of things, including the press, set pieces, drills, all that kind of thing, and had a little bit of input in terms of the setup and the formation. And I think that's probably all they've needed, because we've said it all along. You doubt it. You think, oh, are they even a good bunch of players? But I think they're better. They're much better than where they are in the league. They're not probably, maybe it's not a top 10 bunch of players, but they're not far off, you know what I mean? They're probably just below that in that group. They're certainly not relegation fighters, and I think it just maybe need that little bit of freshening up, and Jones has brought that. But I don't think he's been brought in to deliberately sort of force Steve Bruce out in particular. Whether it does that in the long term is up for question, but I don't think that was the original idea behind bringing him in.
No, me neither. Lots of questions coming in. We'll try and get through as many as we can. Liam says, do you think Longstaff should have accepted the loan move to Watford? Also linked with Valencia. I mean, if there is an issue, in the dressing room at the moment with Longstaff, should he have potentially, I think he's talking about, is he talking about Sean or Matty? I'm not sure, but I'm talking about Sean. Do you think Sean should have gone to Valencia, if he's not going to get much of a look in?
I think there was interest from Valencia and others to take Sean, but I don't think that was ever really going to happen. I think both players were keen to remain at the football club and fight their corner. I'll put it that way. They were ready to fight their corner. I do think Matty Longstaff would have benefited from going away and playing games. Do I think Watford was the right club for him? I'm not 100% certain on that one. They haven't got a great record with loan players. Quite a transient club, change managers, change players so often. I'm not certain that will be the best move for him, but it is a shame. It's a shame he couldn't have got out on loan somewhere because even though he's probably one of the better centre midfielders we've got, I just don't see Steve Bruce using him. Even when he's been playing well or come in and done well, or even when we've been desperate and we haven't been able to turn to anybody, he hasn't put him in squads. And look, I think it's like I said, I think people can probably join the dots and work out what I was talking about earlier, but it isn't a great situation with the Longstaffs, and I find that really sad. Two good, young, talented Geordie lads who've got the club at the heart, bleed black and white, and want to do well for this football club. And I'm not sure that their careers are being best served at the football club they love.
Barry Hogan's saying, do you believe that we had the Scousers' new defender lined up before they swept in? Obviously, lots of rumours on transfer deadline day. I mean, is that genuine, do you think?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, Barry, it was. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Mo, again, says, why do you think we were trying to sign Ozan Kabak when we have a defender out on loan at Spain called Florian Lejeune? Why can't we recall him back? You mentioned that slightly earlier, but, I mean, was Kabak a genuine attempt as well to bring him in?
Yeah, they did. They really tried to get him in. Like I said with Lejeune, I'm not sure if there is a callback. And even if there is, I'm not 100% certain there's the willingness of Steve Bruce to do that. I think you'll probably leave him out there. And look, I can't predict anything, but knowing like what I knew in the summer with regards to his thoughts on the player, it wouldn't surprise me if Steve Bruce remains at this football club beyond the summer. It wouldn't surprise me if Florian Lejeune doesn't return and we don't see him, and he probably just leaves in the summer. But we'll wait and see on that one. That's for a fight for another day. And for now, I think for me, I probably would have thought about bringing Lejeune back because I think Newcastle have had the odd struggle. But as long as they get their injuries back, they should be all right. Lascelles, Fernandez, Dummett, Clark, Shaw. They've got 5 there who can all play. And as a desperation, you could put put Isaac Hayden back there, or disaster time, and you put Emil Kraft in there. But there is enough bodies in that squad probably to not have to bring one back. I would suspect if they had brought Kabak in, you might have seen one of those centre halves leave the football club.
Was there an option to buy on Willock? Did you say that before or not? Or?
I don't know. I don't think there is. I don't know for certain, but I don't believe there is an option to buy, no.
Okay, a lot of people asking that. Life Goal says, any truth on £4 million bid for Richie turned down? His club wanted $8 million. I mentioned that as well. I mean, I'd heard that anyway, that there was a difference in amounts that they wanted. I mean, it could have been the contract, I suppose, but I mean, did that come out? Why the deal collapsed?
I think it was money. I think Newcastle United wanted more money than Bournemouth were willing to pay. There's been a lot of rumour and conjecture about the type of fees that were involved. I was led to believe in the summer Newcastle wanted in and around $5 million for the player, and Bournemouth wouldn't pay it then. So I'm not sure it's jumped to 8, but if it has, that's quite an incredible amount for a 31-year-old player who isn't in the first team. To be honest, I know he's got a good contract. He's got reasonably long term, a lot of time left on it, but that is a lot of money for a 31-year-old player who will be dropping down to the Championship with all the financial troubles that's been sort of rolling around in the last few months.
Mike Gents is saying, is there any truth that Willock has signed on loan for 18 months?
It's just to the end of the season.
Just the end of the season. Okay. Yeah, Baz Dost says Arsenal don't want to sell because they know he's very good but want to give him experience, which is fair enough. Sean, he says Willock would only want to stay if the crowd around him... that doesn't continue, so I can't read the rest of that. James goes, Bruce's attitude behaviour during the press conference is terrible. He's representing the club and the fans. He should at least be polite, not sarcastic. I think his well-being has been affected. What's your thoughts? Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, we did talk about this, you and I, this afternoon when we were catching up, and I've got to be honest, I brought it up. I just find, there is a little bit of animosity, it has to be said, still, with some of his answers, and he does seem to be doing things slightly differently, and it doesn't really come across well, does it, when you're managing Newcastle United, and that's the way that you're dealing with the press?
Apologies if I get all life coachy here, but he doesn't look like he's particularly enjoying his job. He doesn't look like he's particularly enjoying the time that he has to spend answering questions. He doesn't look like a happy man. And it makes you wonder whether he's really keen for this to continue. But I suppose having dealt with managers all over the country, different jobs that I've had, football managers, they're egotists. They're all egotists. They've all got a big ego. And Steve Bruce, I know for a fact, would believe that he will turn this around. And will be taking great pleasure in the challenge of doing that. But I don't think he's particularly enjoying the questioning from the press. There's been some criticism of the press up until very recently saying, are you even asking the questions? I think you can tell by Steve Bruce is now tired, really frustrated reactions to questions, that he is tired of getting tough questions. He's tired of being asked about all the things that we all talk about among our friends on social media. He gets asked all of those questions, and he's fed up of answering it. And it's come to a point where certain journalists aren't being allowed to ask questions, which happened in the last game. There was 3 local lads travelled all the way across from here to Everton and didn't get to ask a question in the press conference, which is quite embarrassing. But I don't necessarily think that's just a Steve Bruce thing. I think it's probably come from the club as well. So yeah, I think he cuts a really frustrated figure. He does not look like a man who's enjoying it, and you talk about his well-being. He does not look mentally. He doesn't look like somebody who's particularly enjoying the challenge. But I'm sure he will be. Some part of him will be, and I think he's talked a lot about wanting to prove people wrong, and I think he'll probably still feel that.
Coming up to half-time in the early kick-offs tonight, it's Sheffield United 0, West Brom 1, Wolves 0, Arsenal 1. So we'll keep an eye on those scorelines as the night progresses. Lots of points coming in, lots of similar stuff. People asking whether whether the opening of the Qatar embassy in Riyadh again is a positive sign on the progression of relations out there. Well, of course it is. But me and Liam have said on this show more than one occasion, neither of us are really Middle Eastern politics experts. Surely that looks as if it's a good sign. We really do hope that that's a good sign. We've used the phrase many times. There's even been a T-shirt sold for charity about Dots joining. We still believe that. And but tonight, genuinely, guys and girls, we don't have anything to say about the takeover. There's absolutely nothing to say, and I really don't. I don't really see the point of us, giving you any information when there isn't any information. So if there is any stuff, hopefully by next week, maybe there is something, we'll get back on that. But we don't want the show to become overrun with a takeover, and that's not a negative, as Liam said earlier. Funko Freddy says, how do men? Watched Adam P's video of the new signing yesterday. I'm over the knot with the new German centre-back. I couldn't understand a word that kid said. Well, look, poor Adam. He does his best. And anyone who puts their head above the parapet and does these podcasts, Funko, look, it's not easy. Liam will tell you. Liam did Match Day Live for the Shields Gazette, Liam, didn't you? For Leeds United. Tell us about the experience, mate. Did you enjoy it?
Right, so we did the Leeds game last week with a YEP, Yorkshire Evening Post. We did like a live watch along that Steve does every single game, and I was absolutely exhausted when I finished it. I was Steve Wraith for the night. It was just when I finished, I had a newfound absolute respect for the job that Steve does on a match day, because it was an exhausting experience, enjoyable all the same, but a really, really tough experience. And never mind the respect for Steve, which I have anyway, but I just thought I couldn't stop thinking about the likes of Jeff Stelling, who sits there for 8 hours and does that every Saturday. I mean, he gets well paid for it. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
But wow, it was a really tiring experience. I think when we finished, it was about 3.5 hours. When I finished, I literally just collapsed on my desk in the workplace. I was exhausted and had half an hour little break before I thought, right, I better do some work now. But it was look, hats off to you, Steve. It's some job that you do.
Thanks, mate. Look, it is tough. It is tough to do, and like I said, Adam, we had an issue and we cleared it up, and he came on my show. I went on his. Look, he's a young lad. He's trying his best. There's a few other podcasts out there, which they're small. They're trying to build themselves, and good luck to them. Everyone's got an opinion, and everyone's opinion is valid. I keep saying that nobody is right or wrong, and that's what makes football. The game that it is, opinions. But it's about how you handle it, how you put yourself out there. And I've seen all the social media stuff today. I've got to be honest, I've ignored a lot of the comments tonight about it. I don't really want to get sucked into it. People asking when I'm going to have Keith back on the show. Keith will be back on the show when there's something to say. He's had 3 appearances on NUFC Matters. He's a welcome guest. And I've got to be honest, I've got to know him. Unlike a lot of people on social media. He's explained the social media situation as well. He's had a chat about it, and look, I'm just not going to get drawn into it anymore. I didn't get drawn into it today. I ignored social media until later on. I'd had a chat with Liam, and then I realised what had been going on. And I look, for me, we did the Think Before You Tweet campaign. I was delighted to do it, and my views on social media changed a lot last year when I was targeted, and we've said enough about it on this show. Let's concentrate on football. Newcastle United won at the weekend. Let's hope to win again tonight. Let's start looking ahead to tonight's game, Liam. Newcastle against Crystal Palace. It's not out the frying pan into the fire anymore. We've been used to losing games and not getting any points, but it's an 8:15 kickoff tonight. Obviously, Lascelles is missing, potentially damaged his hamstring at Everton, so we're not sure how long he's going to be out. Ryan Fraser, of course, hasn't trained this week due to being ill. Kieran Clark came off the bench to replace Lascelles. It's unclear whether Federico Fernandez is going to be fit enough to feature tonight. He's missed the last 4 matches, of course, due to injury. Joe Willock wasn't signed in time to feature in the game tonight. Crystal Palace, Connor Wickham, Jeffrey Schlupp, Mamadou Sakho, Wayne Hennessy, Nathan Ferguson and James Tompkins are all unavailable for them. French forward Mateta is yet to make his debut. He completed a loan move from Mainz last month. Palace, form-wise, ended a run of just 1 victory in 10 league and cup fixtures by beating Wolves 1-0 at Selhurst Park on Saturday. So not in a great run of form themselves. They failed to score a goal in their most recent 4 away games in all competitions, which is a run of 416 minutes. Now, before the Everton game, we would have probably been putting money on them ending that run of goals. But look, we've got to be positive, haven't we, tonight, going into it? And you would think that the team is going to be positive, Liam. What's your thoughts on that? And what are you expecting Steve Bruce to do tonight, formation-wise? And are you expecting any surprises or changes?
So I expect it to be as good as the same team. There's been a lot of talk this week about 2 changes. I'm led to believe there's only 1 change in the team. I'll let everybody work out what they think that one might be. It's got to be the same again. It's got to be the same formation. It's got to be the same team, the same approach. I know we're talking about horses for courses, but I think it would be really daft to change what worked so well on Saturday. And I think Newcastle United should really go for the jugular again, press high, push on, try to get a couple of goals, create some chances. And I think they can do that. I think they can do that tonight. I genuinely think. I really feel that. That we'll have to hope it's not a flash in the pan. I don't believe it will be. I think that there was a real moment on Saturday where you thought, no, this has changed. I put a tweet out there after 20 minutes saying this is really good. Hope it continues. It probably won't. 40 minutes it did. 60 minutes, and it just kept all the way through. It was a really positive we've just got to pray that it's not a flash in the pan, and I don't believe it is. Like I say, 1 change I'm expecting tonight, probably not the 2 that's been hinted at this week. some people might be disappointed by it, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think the team plays really well as a unit, and I think the least changes you can make to a team, the better.
Yep. Ifty says the ban has been lifted on Qatari newspaper websites, Al Qas channel. I don't know when exactly, but the ban was lifted, which is more good stuff. Big shout out to Chris Ellis. Thank you, mate, for becoming a YouTube member. Simon says Liam Ashley will have to spend in the summer with Gale, Murphy, Carroll, Fernandez, Shaw, Lazar, Savia, and maybe more out of contract in the summer. Yeah, I mean, look, if Ashley is still here in the summer, or even if he isn't, and we've got new owners, there's going to be some major surgery in the summer transfer window, isn't there?
The way I would look at it, you name those names. I think Fernandez is the one that stands out really that you want tied down. Shaw, I don't necessarily think will leave. Again, I can't really say much on that, but I'll let people work out why he may not. The same happened, very similar situation to Fernandez last season. Murphy's an interesting one. They are trying to get a new deal there. Dwight Gale is also one in conversations about a new deal. I'm not so certain that one will happen. Simply because of just a general lack of game time. He hasn't been being played, and I don't think the footballer, despite wanting to stay at Newcastle United, I don't think he particularly wants to stay at a football club where he is not getting a game, even when the team isn't scoring goals. I think it's been quite a frustrating 6 months for Dwight Gale, really. Well, sort of 3 months since he got back fit. Andy Carroll's the one. Is he probably going to be kept on for another year because he's relatively cheap? I doubt it. I think his time's probably come at the end of the season. And I think that's probably where the biggest freshening up of things is going to have to take place, because you've got one striker in Callum Wilson, and then you haven't really got anybody else after that, unless they do put Gale on a short-term 1 year loan or something along those 1 year extension. Along those lines. I think there is problems waiting down the line, but let's be realistic about it. We're talking about Dwight Gale, Jacob Murphy, Fabian Shaw. Even when Newcastle are at full strength, those players don't necessarily play in the side. Andy Carroll. If you lost Carroll, Murphy, and Gale, would it really be such a big loss to the team? I would argue that it won't be. No. So I think Fernandez is the one for me that I would be really looking to tie down. We've seen Kieran Clark get a new deal recently. I want to see Federico Fernandez rewarded for his fantastic performances, for his real consistency over the last 2 years.
Yep, okay. Toonman144, thanks for becoming a member. Honestly, thanks for doing that, guys. You don't have to. If you want to become a member, it's just a small donation towards the channel. But it is much appreciated, and it'll all go towards paying for those Christmas drinks if we ever get that Christmas party that we're all hoping for, to raise money for the food bank. But it'd be great if we could do that. We've got about 5 minutes left. So we'll just try and get through a couple more questions before we ask Liam for a prediction tonight, because I know he's got to go off and get ready for his coverage on the Shields Gazette site. Barry Hogan says, I love Bruce's comments when asked about trying to get someone from PSG, and he said Neymar, then thought he was funny. I didn't hear that, but look, that is funny. Steve Bruce has come out with something like that. I personally find that funny, but it each to their own. Alex says, I'm convinced we'll stay up. If the takeover collapses, does Bruce stay or go in the eyes of the club? Good question. I mean, if Ashley stays and Newcastle do stay up, he's got a decision to make on that score, I suppose, as well, hasn't he? But I can imagine him just keeping it as it is if we stay up.
I would imagine he'd probably keep it as it is. Steve Bruce has got another year's contract after the end of this one. And I remember when it was announced, it didn't say it was a definitive 3-year contract. It said an initial 3-year contract. So that makes you wonder if there's any ideas on any caveats with that deal, that there might be extensions and things like that already built into it. But yeah, I would imagine that you would just keep it as it is. I don't see he wouldn't see any need to change in particular.
Yeah, David Reed asking where the ladies are tonight. Well, that was last night, mate. Unfortunately, it wasn't a live show. I was otherwise engaged. I had work in Liverpool yesterday. I had to travel to Liverpool. So it was pre-recorded on Sunday. So that's where the ladies are. And if you want to catch up with that, you can watch that on the playlist under Ladies Night. Chugs is asking what the lineup is tonight. It comes out an hour before kickoff. So 7:15, dive onto Newcastle United's timeline or the Shields Gazette's timeline. You should be able to find line it there. Ross says, only players that worry me tonight are Zaha and Eze. If we can keep them quiet, then I feel we'll come out on top. Yeah, I mean, they're the big threats, aren't they, tonight, Liam?
Yeah, talented footballers who can really cause damage. We talk about Alan St-Maximin having an impact off Newcastle United's bench, but those two players are up there with Alan St-Maximin in Premier League terms as really talented players who can burst past people and cause havoc. So yeah, Newcastle need to be really aware to that. But I think that if they can prevent those getting on the ball as much as other teams have in recent weeks in particular, then I think Newcastle will be all right. Keep the high press going and focus on what we do well, which was Saturday. Just do a lot of that again, and I think Newcastle United will come out with a positive result tonight.
Ewan, I've not seen this. He says Rafa Benitez is in talks with Marseille tonight. I've not heard that. Have you heard that, Liam?
I haven't heard it, but it wouldn't surprise us. Like I think I said it on here last week. Rafa Benitez, to me, is somebody that does not like being out of work, and it would not surprise me, even though he is the preferred choice of the consortium and PCP in particular, and had an influential role in largely in getting things rolling on these deals. It wouldn't surprise me if Rafa Benitez takes a good job because he's a manager in demand. He's a manager of a lot of quality, and like I said, he's not somebody who wants to sit around twiddling his thumbs. I've no idea if he is in talks with Marseille, but it really wouldn't surprise me given that it's such a short distance away as well.
Yeah, I'm just chasing that up. Rafa Benitez linked with Marseille, but Lequip's detail about NUFC contract proposal should raise hopes that he'll stay. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those stories which is obviously doing the rounds. I don't trust Lequip, I've got to be perfectly honest. Everything seems to get lost in translation when they put something out there as well. Tom Dixon says, Steve, do you think that they might cancel the Dunstan season and start again next season? Tom, don't quote us on this, but I wouldn't be surprised, Bonnie lad. I think we've seen. I think we've seen the end of that season. I can't see how they can do it. I mean, how are they going to get through, and how are they going to get the games played? I mean, it doesn't bode well for any of the non-league teams, I don't think. And let's see what happens with that. Lots of people, as always, saying great show, brilliant show, which is very nice. Bill Burnett says, why don't you organise a big party when COVID-19 is in the past? It would be great to have a get at. Bill, we have a sellout show, a Christmas show, which we were hoping to have at Christmas last year. It sold out with Lee Clark, but that was limited numbers, COVID numbers, so we could only do 80 tickets. So hopefully, once we do get back to some kind of normality and we can do something, hopefully we'll be able to fill the concert room at the Irish Club with a few more people. It was only a tenner a ticket, I think, if I remember rightly. I have to double check, but yeah, we've already handed the money over to the food bank, but hopefully we'll be able to increase the capacity and have a lot more of you there. We've also got a big event coming up at the Tyne Theatre when, as I say, COVID allows. We've already got it lined up. There you go. I've got the flyer there, which people probably haven't seen for a while. I was sharing it quite a bit when I was hopeful that the event was going to go ahead last year. But yeah, at the moment, Tommy Wright, Kevin Scott, Lee Clark, Steve Howie, Keith Gillespie, Liam O'Brien, Darren Peacock, John Beresford, Rob Lee and Supermac, and John Gibson, Joe Allen and myself, and quite a few of the NUFC Matters team are going to be there. So yeah, if you get onto Groupon and our website, if you want to buy them off there, but get onto Groupon, you should be able to get a deal on Groupon for those tickets still. So get yourself on there, and fingers crossed we'll be able to get together in the new year. Liam, we often give you an opportunity to just tell people where they can find you and your work. So if you just want to give a little push, mate, to the Shields Gazette and where people can find you.
I always say, if you like what I do, Liam J Kennedy 23 on Twitter, give us a follow. We work on a subscription model at the Shields Gazette, so we don't always go for the clickbaity sort of stuff. It's more your longer reads and breaking news and all that kind of thing, and hard news. So yeah, just if you can afford it, if you like what I do on here and you like what I write, then just jump on and put your money in the pot, as they say, because good journalism costs money, doesn't come for free. We've had it for free for a long time, but it's moving back. It's not always going to be that way, and I think a lot of people out there are now having to pay for the quality journalism with the subscriptions elsewhere, and the Times, Athletic, and others. And look, we're just getting ahead of that curve as well. But yeah, if you enjoy it, just you'll find a link at the top of my Twitter. It's pinned to the top. So yeah, no, thanks, Steve. It's been another good one. Takeover free Tuesdays.
Yeah, exactly. Swag Dog, Joe Allen's no good with technology, honestly. We'll get him on once we can actually get him face to face, once we're allowed to sit down. Even if I've got to go to his house and do it off my own computer, I'll do it. But Joe just doesn't do technology very well, and it was no fun. He kept cutting out and all that. Chugs, thanks very much, mate. He says, can we get Tino to one of these parties? Wow, you don't want that, mate, honestly. And plus I'd end up having to look after him and probably pay for him. But yeah, look, Chugs, thanks for coming on. It's your first show. It's nice to know that we've still got people tuning in for the first time. In that case, I will go through this. iTunes and Spotify. You can find all of our shows apart from the Matchday Lives on there. So if you miss any of the shows and you're out walking your dog, you can listen to me and Liam talking on various podcasts. You can also find us on all the playlists are on there. Liam's show is under Liam Kennedy playlists on the YouTube channel. You can watch all of our shows on there if you want to, and all the other shows that we do are on there now. But please subscribe to the channel. Click subscribe. Just hit that little button down there. Hit subscribe, click like, and click share. Share it out to your friends. As I say, I'm going to go off and have a quick cuppa and a bit chill out before Matchday Live. Quick prediction, Liam?
I think we'll win 2-0 tonight. I don't know where this ridiculous confidence is coming from, but I do genuinely feel we'll win 2-0.
It's wonder, isn't it, what a win does. So Matchday Live, 7:45. We will be back. And today, special day. Hughie Gallagher was born. What a player he was, allegedly. I never saw him. I know I'm old, but I'm not that old. But yeah, today was the day that Hughie Gallagher was born. One of those famous number 9s. Liam, I'll let you go off and get prepared for the match, mate. Great to have you on, as always. And I'll see you next week, mate. Take care.
Cheers, Steve.
Take care, mate. Bye.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again.